This is Energy Perspectives, a weekly podcast produced in Guyana that delves into the developments unfolding in the world's fastest growing economy.
Welcome to another episode of the Energy Perspectives as we count down to the Guyana Energy Conference and Supply Chain Expo under the theme Building Tomorrow's Future Today. And that's happening from February 17th to the 20th, 2026 at the Guyana Marriott in Georgetown, focusing on real solutions for sustainable growth, digital transformation, and resilient economies. And just last evening, the President announced a series of initiatives as part of government's policy agenda for economic and social transformation over the next 5 years, aimed at improving the lives of all Guyanese. Our guest today on the Energy Perspectives podcast is His Excellency Sebastian Sigouin, High Commissioner of Canada to Guyana and Suriname. High Commissioner, it's lovely having you with us. Understand it's your second Christmas with us in Guyana. Trust the season is going well for you and your family. But can we have your quick thoughts at being part of the audience yesterday as the President addressed the nation?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Michelle, for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. I was participating in last year's energy conference, and I very much look forward to this year iteration. You mentioned yesterday's presentation by the President, and I was really taken by the scope, the breadth of the vision of the issues that the President addressed during his presentation. And they touch on a number of really critical areas that will really support Guyana's transformation.
And right on that, about all that's happening in Guyana, a period of rapid economic and energy transformation. Your Excellency, how would you describe the current state of the Canada-Guyana relations?
Okay. Well, it's a very good question, and the Canada-Guyana relation goes back to independence. Canada has always been very present since 1966 in so many different ways. We've been present politically, we've been present through trade and business engagement, for example, in the mining sector. We've also been engaged through development assistance, providing millions and millions and millions of Canadian dollars over the decades to support the growth of Guyana. And what we're seeing now with this rapid transformation is the relationship, the partnership is also evolving into something different, really much focus on possibilities, opportunities for investment.
And of course, Guyana is depending and learning from Canada because you've got so many strengths in engineering excellence, environmental stewardship, safety, advanced technology. How do you view Guyana as an emerging energy producer, and how could your strengths, Canadian strengths, support Guyana's energy development in particular?
Yeah, so certainly Canada can contribute to that transformation. In the energy sector, obviously we all know how transformative the wealth of the oil and gas revenue are for this country. There are other companies that are very much engaged in the energy sector, but there's also a lot of Canadian companies that are already engaged in supporting the energy sector, from energy infrastructure, know-how, digitalization, training, smart buildings. So many Canadian companies are working around the energy sector and supporting the growth of that sector.
Since you came as High Commissioner, which is just about going into 2 years now, how do you have an average as to how many investors have come in since?
Well, I must admit that when I got here, there was companies involved in the energy sector, many big Canadian mining companies, and we know them. But beyond that, very few Canadian companies were present. So where I've dedicated a lot of my time over the last year and a half that I've been here is to bring exactly what you're touching upon, is to bring in the Canadian expertise. So we had, in the last year and a half, we had three business delegations that came to Guyana to meet local partners, to meet with decision makers, and to start discussing investment opportunities. And these companies range from all kinds of sectors. We had companies that came that are into infrastructure, roads, bridges. We had companies that came in that were into waste management and potable water production. We had companies that were here in smart buildings, smart infrastructure. So all kinds of companies that have come over the last year and a half, bringing the Canadian expertise, bringing the Canadian quality of work, and what I call the Canadian way of doing business, which is a way of doing business based on a long-term commitment, long-term engagement, working with local partner, and also investment that are supportive and respective of the local communities.
Which is perhaps one of the things that the President was saying last evening, addressing all who are interested in coming to Guyana to ensure that understanding is there, that expectation of how you will do business when you come to Guyana. So let's continue to talk then, High Commissioner, about that experience and how it's guiding us into building out robust energy governance systems. A lot of talk about ensuring that there is transparency, accountability, and good governance in the energy sector. How can we build on the Canadian experience, learn from the Canadian experience, because you've got strong regulatory environmental frameworks, as we mentioned earlier?
Well, I would even say, as a footnote to what you just said, transparency, good governance, accountability, those apply not just to the energy sector, they apply to everything. And that should be the definition of a modern and democratic government. So whether it's in the energy sector or other economic sectors, what you do want is to have robust frameworks, legal frameworks and regulations that are clear, that are transparent, because what the investors ultimately, at least the Canadian investors, will be looking for is a predictable and stable investment environment. So that will be based on knowing what the rules are, knowing who the players are, knowing that they have recourses if things go astray, and that's what will attract reputable investors.
You mentioned at least 3 delegations coming to Guyana, but there was also visits by Guyanese delegations to Canada over the last several months as well. So there is sufficient information, you think, for investors to get a feel as to what is happening on the ground and the requisite information to make good decisions about investing here?
I would say the knowledge and the awareness is growing. Obviously, many of the Canadian companies that are interested in international investment were focused on a particular market. Things have shifted over the last year or so. So now they do need to look at other markets. And that's why we've also seen these 3 delegations of very strong companies who are saying, wait a minute, maybe I need to look elsewhere. And where are the key markets? And of course, the world sees the rapid economic growth of Guyana, and Canadian investors are starting to see the opportunities. And you're right, there are Guyanese representatives who are now reaching out to the Canadian market, and that's exactly what we need. We need Guyana, not just for Canada, we need Guyana to reach out to these other markets, because the investors may not show up. You need to go and get them and sell yourself, sell your products, sell your opportunities. And I think that's going to be one of the key effort that Guyana will need to make to attract foreign investors, is to promote Guyana abroad.
When you were given the mission that you were now going to come to Guyana as High Commissioner, what did you know about Guyana? And when you got on the ground, how much of what you read or researched was factual?
Yeah, it's a country of contrasts, and certainly I'd read about that before coming here, and certainly I've seen it. It was a country of immense beauty that I read about. And I certainly was able to see part of it, not all of it yet, but I'm working on that. And what I've discovered that you can't really read in the papers or in social media is the rapid pace at which things are changing. And I see it every day in my small environment. What I see around me, I see things changing very quickly. So that's something that I certainly have learned. Is the rapid pace, but also I've learned about the very ambitious vision that the government has for this country.
And unlike some other diplomats, you stayed your first Christmas in Guyana. You're staying again this time around. How come you're not going back?
We have 4 children back home. Last year we had 2 that visited us. This year we have 1. I also have my mother coming to visit us. I think they're happy to escape a bit of the Canadian cold. Mind you, personally, I like the winter, so I miss actually the winter. But it's also where we live. This is our home now, and for us it's important to be here and celebrate Christmas here. Maybe next year we'll celebrate it in Canada. I don't know. But for this year, we elected to do it here again.
And we're happy to have you, High Commissioner. Our guest today on Energy Perspectives is His Excellency Sebastien Sigouin, High Commissioner of Canada. And of course, we're having this conversation as we count down to the Guyana Energy Conference and Supply Chain Expo happening in February of 2026. Mark those dates, February 17 to the 20th. High Commissioner, do you know the number that might be here for the Energy Expo next year? Have Canadians been reaching out to your office to find out if they can participate? How big is your delegation for 2026?
I don't know yet, but certainly we have been having conversations with Canadian companies that have been here already and others that have not. And we're really promoting the conference as this is the biggest gathering, the place you need to be if you're working in anything that is remotely related to energy. Because as I said, it's not just the energy, it's everything that's around it. So this is how we're presenting the energy to our Canadian companies, and we're getting a lot of interest. There's a lot of Canadian companies, even in the oil and gas sector, whether it's in Alberta, Newfoundland, Prince Edward Island, there's many companies that know a thing or two about energy, oil and gas, and these are the companies that we're reaching to and tell them that this is where they need to be if they want to seize the opportunities that Guyana has to offer.
And speaking of seizing the opportunities, it's good that there is that interest. How can Canada support local content development, workforce training, strengthening our energy supply chain?
Mm-hmm. We do that in different ways. For example, we have decades of creating partnerships between Canadian universities, technical schools to build the capacity of Guyana, not just in the energy sector, but in a whole range of sector. And we work with the New Amsterdam Technical Institute, for example, or the Essequibo Technical Institutes. And in other ways, we're partnering with the Ministry of Health to build the capacity of nurses and health professionals. In the energy sector, certainly we also have been working and sharing that expertise. Not as much as I would like. As I say, there's many companies that know a thing or two about energy. So we're trying to make those connections so that these companies come here and share that know-how, that expertise in Guyana. But there's many other ways where we can also support the strengthening of the energy sector, and I think it's a relationship that will continue to evolve between Canada and Guyana.
I was very happy to have been invited to speak at a gathering of young people from Indigenous communities, regions 1, 7, 8, and 9 recently for one of your programs meant to widen the understanding of young people in Guyana, particularly from Indigenous communities, sponsored by the Canadian government. And, they were just so full of promise and eager to be part of all that is happening in Guyana. So we're happy that is an ongoing requirement for all that you do. We're going to switch gears a little bit, High Commissioner. We're going to move to climate and resilience, very important topics. Guyana continues to be a leader in this regard. But let's continue to talk about opportunities for deeper Canada-Guyana collaboration on climate resilience, adaptation, Guyana, but also climate vulnerable states in the Caribbean.
Yeah. It's a very good question because obviously most countries of the world, including Canada, are facing the impact of climate change in different ways, but still facing those challenges. So there are many ways where this collaboration, our own experience, can be of interest to Guyana. For example, again, yesterday, President Ali talked about the growth of the agricultural sector. While in the face of climate change, you need to develop climate resistant and climate climate smart agriculture. We have expertise in that area. We have expertise in clean energy technology, whether it's solar panels or other way of producing energy. We have companies that do solar panels. We have companies that transform garbage into energy. So there's all kinds of expertise that could help Guyana do that transformation in a way that is adapted to the impact of climate change.
Oh, absolutely. And Guyana is big on renewable energy solutions. And as you mentioned, solar, wind, hydro, emerging areas, green hydrogen and all of that. So we're happy that Canada can support Guyana in this regard. But, if you were to look at particular lessons from Canada's own energy transition journey, what would those be that are most relevant to us?
I think there's many things to look for. First of all, you have a clear framework for developing your energy sector. But I think it's also need to work with local communities where these energy development projects are taking place. And for us, it has been an essential part of our transition in addressing climate change is how do we work with the communities, with the local partners to make sure that whatever is being put forward also meets their own need, their own aspirations, and their own entitlement to the land, for example, if we're doing energy projects.
Oh, absolutely. Our guest today on the Energy Podcast is High Commissioner Sebastian Seguin, High Commissioner of Canada. And the reason we're chatting today is because we are on the way to the biggest energy conference, perhaps in this part of the world, the Guyana Energy Conference and Supply Chain Expo, happening in February 17th to the 20th. High Commissioner, you mentioned that you were part of the Expo and conference last year, and perhaps another big delegation coming out from Canada and other parts of the world. Typically, once the expo has concluded, High Commissioner, and persons have heard, asked the necessary questions, decided that these are the particular areas that they're interested in. What role does the High Commission here play in facilitating those interests with the respective partners in Guyana?
Yeah, well, it's a very good question because this is a key element of our role at the Canadian High Commission here in Guyana and any of our embassies around the world where we have what we call the Trade Commissioner's Service. And so I have a small team, 3 people, but that's exactly what we do is we make the links between Canadian investors who want to come to Guyana. We make the link between them and local partners when we can. We help them make those connections, meet the people. We help them meet with decision makers when that is appropriate. We help them understand the local context, some of the regulations, how to navigate some of the environment. That's exactly what we do. So when we have companies that are interested in coming here, we're here to support them in any way that we can. And we do this here in Guyana. We do it in other countries, in Suriname, because I'm also responsible for Suriname. But we do it across the world. And sometimes we know that there are Canadian companies that are here and they're doing fine and they don't need us because it is a service. But when they do need our service, we're already there to provide that service and stand up with them.
And I would imagine not all who come exploring decide to remain and invest for whatever reasons. Are there any areas that you perhaps would want to highlight for particularly partners who might be tuned in today as to what information they should have at the ready so that investors don't become frustrated, whether it's obtaining data or securing meetings or whatever the case is, that possibly could turn investors away from doing business in Guyana?
Yeah, well, to me, it's not as much as what could turn them away is what will keep them looking at the market. And what I tell any Canadian companies that I speak with is if you want to do business in Guyana, you have to be here as often as you can, even have a permanent presence if you can, because it's all based on the relationship that you can build with the local partners. This is probably true with many countries, but For a Canadian company that's used to the Canadian market, they know the rules, they know the people, the relationship is different, but it's a long-term relation, it's a long-standing relationship. Here in Guyana, many of the companies starts from zero. They've never been here. So they really need to start with building the relationship, know the right people, who to talk to, not just to make the deal, to make sign a contract, but also understand, how things are working. So to me, this is really to tell companies, maybe, you don't really understand how it's working, but stick around, speak to people, you will understand how it works, and then you can make an informed decision about whether or not this is a market for you. But one thing that I hear from all the Canadian companies that I'm in touch with, every time they show up here, they're always amazed by the range and the scope of the opportunities that are present here.
So what would be your message then, High Commissioner, to investors, partners, considering Guyana for the first time?
I would say show up, come, we'll support you. Seize opportunities like the Energy Conference to come here. Maybe you won't sign a deal, but you will meet people, and that's the most important first step that a Canadian investor can make in Guyana.
All right, as we come to the end of our conversation today, High Commissioner, I want us to chat briefly, beyond energy. We've spent some time talking about energy. After all, this is the podcast that leads us up to the Guyana Energy Conference and Supply Chain Expo. But on the topic of innovation, people, and the future, because the President was talking a lot about that yesterday, beyond oil and gas, and you perhaps touched on it, but just to recap, what you see as the most promising areas for expanding Canada-Guyana cooperation beyond oil and gas?
The first area that I would flag, and I touched upon it a little bit before, about we have decades of engaging and supporting capacity building and training. And I think going forward, this should continue to be an area of focus for us, to bring the Canadian expertise, the know-how, to ensure that we can transfer some of that knowledge to local partners. So I think this is one of the most important area where Canada can contribute. There's a lot of other countries, a lot of big companies that are doing all kinds of things, but in terms of know-how, this is something that Canada can bring. And it's something that quite often, it's not very expensive. It doesn't cost millions of dollars. You just need to make the right connection. Somebody that has the expertise with somebody that needs that expertise, and then it needs on the Guyana side, the commitment to explore that opportunity and the commitment to invest in building that capacity. And I think that's one of the key areas where Canada can make a significant contribution. But then again, it's also our expertise, and I mentioned, like digitalization, smart building, infrastructure, smart processes. How do you manage? You want to create warehouses. How do you manage that? So this is all the kind of expertise and know-how that the Canadian companies can bring to this country.
And there are direct flights.
Well, I'm glad you're mentioning that, because yesterday morning I left the Chedi Jagan airport at 3 a.m. after receiving the inaugural flight from Air Transat. So that was the first flight of a direct flight from a Canadian company, airline company, Air Transat, flying directly from Toronto to Georgetown twice a week. And the good thing about that airline company, it's a company that also has a network of routes, of flights across Canada. So it makes it a lot easier to go to Toronto, where the largest part of the Guyanese diaspora community is. But from there, if you want to go to Calgary, if you want to go to Montreal, you want to go to St. John, Newfoundland, you have direct connections from Toronto. So that will facilitate, and I said it at the inauguration ceremony, it will mean more people traveling for tourism, more people traveling to meet with their relatives, more people traveling for education purposes, and more people traveling for business and investment opportunities.
Okay. Was that the airline that your relatives came in on?
No. It wasn't on
Okay.
this one. My mother came on a different flight from a different location, but I do had my second in command who took the flight, the outbound flight going back to Toronto. And the son of one of our colleagues at the High Commission also took that flight on that night. So there will be more Canadians traveling, including myself. Whenever I go back, I now know I can use the Air Transat connection to go home.
And we've been talking about the Guyana-Canada relations. And as you rightly mentioned, it's been in existence for decades and it's only strengthening. But as we wrap up 2025 and, again, just following the impetus from our president, looking ahead to the future, 2030, you've been optimistic about most of what we've been talking about, if not all of what we've been talking about. But is there like a single area of cooperation, High Commissioner, that you are most optimistic about in the future of the Canada-Guyana relations?
It's hard to answer that, but I would do it in this way. I think I'm most optimistic because of the range of opportunities and how I know that the Canadian expertise can support this ambitious vision that we heard the president presenting yesterday. So I'm optimistic about that. The opportunities are there. We have the know-how, the expertise to support that vision. And now it's an issue of making those connections. And those connections are starting to be made through the 3 delegations that we had, future delegations that will come, business delegations that will come. And I think those connections will be made. And I think Canada can play an important role in supporting the implementation of this vision.
And as we conclude our Energy Perspectives podcast today, Excellency, what would you like to say to us as we get ready to celebrate the most beautiful time of the year?
Well, for me, I was at the Christmas Village when it opened. It was a very magical moment for me. I actually walked the whole street because I parked at the end of it, and I walked all the way to.
Did you walk across the harbour, the Barrajaglia Bridge? You didn't. You weren't there.
I did part of it. I did when the bridge was inaugurated. It's a fascinating country. Christmas is very important here. There's so many celebrations, and I very much look forward to taking part. I can't take part to all of them but I look forward to taking part to as many as I can.
Well, we are grateful that you've chosen to stay with us here in Guyana. To you and your family, the very best for the season. We've been chatting with His Excellency Sebastien Seguin, High Commissioner of Canada to Guyana and Suriname, on this edition of the Energy Perspectives podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Thank you, Michelle, for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Guyana Energy Perspectives podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.